Welcome, curious minds, to another deep dive here on the English BookCast. Today, we're embarking on a journey into a truly fascinating and, often challenging piece of literature. It's one that, despite being decades old, feels incredibly relevant to the energy questions, facing our world right now. We're diving deep into Arthur C. Aho's thought-provoking work, Tomorrow's Energy Need Not Be Fuel, which came out way back in 1979 from Aldine Books. And what makes Aho's perspective so unique right from the start is his own background. He grew up during the trying years of the Great Depression, which meant his education wasn't really in traditional classrooms. It was more an individualized learning path. And this immediately frames him as this kind of outside-the-box thinker, someone who approached complex problems from a fresh, sort of unburdened viewpoint.
And that self-directed learning is absolutely key, I think, because what's captivating about Aho's work is how he fearlessly challenges these, deeply entrenched scientific ideas. This isn't just about finding new power sources, you see. It's a fundamental reevaluation of how we understand life, the universe, our place in it. His ambitious scope it attempts to connect everything from our internal consciousness right up to galactic structures, all to redefine our understanding of energy itself.
And that's exactly what we're going to tackle. Our mission today is to distill the core insights from all of Aho's chapters. We want to guide you through his, let's say, intricate arguments, the surprising connections he makes, and some really revolutionary ideas. The goal is for you to walk away feeling truly well-informed, not overwhelmed by the sheer volume of his propositions.
Yeah, prepare for some aha moments, definitely. Because Aho presents this unified theory that touches on everything. Subatomic particles, galactic clusters, and yes, our own consciousness. It's a journey that will certainly make you question some long-held assumptions about how the universe and energy truly work.
Okay, let's start where Ahu starts in Chapter 1. Mother Earth needs help, a call to woe. He opens with this really powerful image, taking us back to the late 1960s. Astronauts viewing Earth from space. They were just awestruck by its beauty, this fragile blue marble. But even as they admired its serene appearance, they were, appalled by the thoughts of man-made contamination and strife expanding within that peaceful setting. It's such a stark contrast, isn't it? It immediately sets the tone for his argument, this notion that we're both custodians and, destroyers.
Indeed. And Aho contextualizes this alarming picture by noting that while, sure, turmoil and natural contamination have always existed, the last few hundred years have seen this alarming increase. And he puts it down to the uncontrolled application of what he calls man-conceived sciences. He highlights how many modern scientists were predicting a point of no return, where environmental decline becomes irreversible. But he also, quite intriguingly, brings in these historical and prophetic expectations of an intervention from an outside source.
Yeah.
This combination creates this profound sense of urgency, a collective whoa, as he puts it, a call to halt the contamination.
Right, whoa. Stop and think. So having set that stage, Aho then offers this crucial distinction. It radically redefines what we even consider science. He's talking natural sciences versus man-conceived sciences. Can you elaborate on that? Why is this distinction so vital for him?
Certainly. So Aho defines natural sciences as those working with nature, cooperating with Earth and Sun's local forces. Think long-term, stable, and least contaminating things like, cultivating food or deriving fuel from wood, basic stuff, really. He notes these often enjoy the least prestige, despite their vital role in sustaining life, which is ironic. In sharp contrast, man-conceived sciences are those that alter or change existing materials for human design purposes. And the deeper these sciences probe into altering matter, the more contaminating the results become. That's his core argument there.
And he uses nuclear physics as a prime example of this man-conceived path, doesn't he? Like the ultimate example.
Absolutely. Nuclear physics, for Aho, represents the deepest penetration into the unknown, creating the most lethal poisons on Earth as byproducts. Poisons which remain deadly for, 24,000 years? It's staggering. He points out the appalling reality that these are often buried in short-life containers within Mother Earth, some already leaking. This, he asserts, is a path of no return, fundamentally unsustainable. But what's crucial here, and this is important, Aho isn't rejecting science. He's urging us to shift our focus, to copying nature's enduring, clean methods for energy rather than blindly pursuing paths that alter and contaminate. He believes the solutions lie in discovering and, harmonizing with nature's own wisdom.
Okay, so building on that quite sobering assessment, Aho then shifts our gaze inward. Chapter 2. I and my body consciousness beyond the brain. He asks perhaps the most fundamental question. Who am I? And his insights here are truly foundational to his whole theory of energy. He opens by noting we know more about our cars or distant stars than we do about ourselves, this elusive I that claims possession of my body. He cites these fascinating neurosurgeon experiments from the 1950s. During brain operations, they used electric current to stimulate specific brain cells, causing body movements. But when asked, why did you move your arm, the patients consistently said, I did not move my arm, you moved it.
Which raises this profound question, doesn't it? Where is the seat of consciousness? These studies found no cell or area in the brain that, when stimulated, would make the patient respond, you made me move. It consistently reinforced the idea that the I speaks of the body as a possession, something separate. The conscious I couldn't be physical located or confined within the brain itself. It suggests a fundamental separation. And this then leads Aho to an electronics analogy.
Right, and this next idea is quite profound. He compares the brain's function storing info triggering actions to memory banks in electronic devices. He sees the indirect connection between the brain and consciousness, much like indirect coupling in, say, a radio, which isolates different stages of circuitry so they can work properly. So the conscious I is not the brain itself. It's coupled to it, but separate.
Precisely. And he offers relatable examples. Think about learning to drive a car. Initially, it demands intense concentration, right? But with practice, the actions become automated. Your foot knows the pedals. And that allows your analytical mind to focus on traffic, on planning the route. Or think about a baseball batter's split-second coordination. It's too fast for conscious thought in the moment. These are all instances of the I programming the brain and body to perform automatically. Aho emphasizes that unlike man-made computers, which lack consciousness, we possess the right to choose what we program into our computer complex, our brain. And we even have the ability, he argues, to erase prior programming. This inherent hunger for freedom, he says, drives us to seek answers beyond mere analytical functions, beyond just being automatons.
So if our analytical abilities are essentially a program running on the brain's hardware, Aho encourages us to seek something more, something deeper.
Yes, exactly. He argues we must go beyond just analysis and seek inner knowing, tapping into what he calls the storehouse of knowledge and wisdom available to us through the mind of the universe via intuition. This requires mental flexibility, though, a willingness to consider new truths, things outside the usual boxes. Our individualized right of choice allows for both constructive and destructive pursuits, depending on how we engage with this inner knowing. He uses the example of, say, inebriation to illustrate this delicate mind-body connection in crisis. Alcohol temporarily removes the higher self, making actions more earthly, more reflexive, and eventually, if taken to extremes, leaving the body as a vegetable. It shows the mind's authoritative direction can be disrupted, highlighting that connection.
Okay, so from the individual I, he moves outward again in Chapter 3. Nature at work instinct and cosmic design. He turns to the animal kingdom, highlighting these incredible animal marvels that seem to defy simple explanation. Take salmon. They migrate thousands of miles, often upstream, to specific spawning grounds. They meet precise schedules without maps or even eating after leaving the ocean. It's almost unbelievable.
It truly is, and it really challenges empirical science, doesn't it? Aho further details the emperor penguin's incredible journey, traveling 2,000 miles in open sea, navigating somehow without the sun to find a tiny spot, a rookery in this vast icy wilderness. These acts just completely defy conventional navigation standards. He also points to ant colonies and honeybee hives, which appear to operate as a single, overruling entity, seemingly with a collective knowing that goes beyond individual intelligence.
He then draws this sharp contrast between man and animal, highlighting what he calls the gift of choice. Domesticated animals, while performing amazing feats, do so without broad freedom of choice. They're compelled by instinct. Salmon, for instance, are like automated devices, he says. They have an established goal they cannot alter, even if it means dying to reach it. And Aho's conclusion here is illuminating. The know-how and the compulsion in animals belong to a realm where authority and dominion over choice is based. This points to a deeper knowing directing the act, rather than individual animal consciousness as we might understand it. It suggests they're fulfilling some kind of cosmic plan. This leads Aho to introduce a profound concept, a cosmic drama of two realms. He defines mind-substance as a realm of pure law and order. This is what he'll later call the other density. Then there's electromagnetic substance, which is the physical reality we perceive, manipulated and guided by that mind substance.
Okay, so if we're operating in these two realms, what truly divides us, humans, from these instinctively guided animals? What's the key difference? Aho states it's our granted right of choice. That makes man a secondary creator within the setting of mind and matter. Energy, he explains, is in motion in space beyond the atom, and it's stable within the atom. Living bodies are constructed of atoms, driven by electrodynamic force, which itself is linked to mind. The challenge for us, though, is perception. Our electromagnetic eyes can only detect electromagnetic substance. Our mind, immersed in the mind substance, the other density, cannot evaluate it objectively from the outside. So the discovery, he argues, must be made by deduction rather than direct physical proof. It requires a fundamental shift in perspective.
Which brings us to Chapter 4, Electromagnetic Isolation, the Limits of Our View. We're living in this era of knowledge explosion, right? Information doubling every 18 months or something crazy like that. But Aho asks, are we truly applying this vast knowledge to understand life itself, or are we kind of missing the boat by not looking at the fundamental concepts? He urges us to wisely examine all man-conceived theories, especially as our understanding of isolation evolves.
Yeah, he emphasizes that this rapid increase in knowledge isn't solely down to our efforts. It's part of a worldwide quickening that affects our perception, our behavior. It urges flexibility in our mental concepts. He then illustrates isolation using that simple radio analogy again. Its tuner, amplifier, detector stages. They're isolated by indirect coupling to prevent dissipation and ensure they function properly.
And Aho applies this same principle to us, to our bodies, and even the planet.
Exactly. He suggests we, too, are individually isolated into a self-reliant system, our physical body. And this isolation extends to our planet within the solar system, operating by these indirect couplings within ever larger systems. Our brain, as a recording organ, is subject to this strong isolation. It's of Earth and cannot of itself discover a realm beyond its electromagnetic domain. This is where he introduces non-electromagnetic forces, using the neutrino from nuclear physics as an example.
Ah, yes, the neutrino. It's fascinating because it can pass through millions of miles of lead without resistance. How does Aho connect this to our conscious eye?
Well, he implies that the elusive, non-electromagnetic eye of us, our spirit, like the neutrino, isn't limited by electromagnetic resistance. Our spirit can then program the brain, which is electromagnetic, to know electromagnetic experiences. It's the interface. Despite our knowledge explosion, Aho observes this common feeling among researchers, like they're on the brink of breakthroughs, but fundamental questions remain. Questions like, why is nature as it is? How does nature do what we can't?
It sounds like he's saying we're fundamentally looking in the wrong place for the answers.
Right.
Like digging deeper into matter won't get us there.
Precisely. Aho suggests we're hindered by seeking answers within minute particles of matter, trying to alter it. Instead, if we knew we think with unrestricted mind, we'd view force like wind to a windmill, simply using forces, not altering them. This could uncover nature's undiscovered tools. This leads him to a really provocative thought. The accepted theory of only one force in motion in free space, the speed of light, is incomplete. Nature always has opposites for contrast, right? So a negative constant must exist, compatible with the speed of light, allowing for passive energy tapping. He points to early research in biological electricity as hints. Even microscopic cilia, those tiny hair-like structures on cells, hold a key. While electron microscopes show their intricate detail, Aho argues their effortless movement points to a dual space beyond the atom. It's a concept that could explain not only how marine life propels itself, but also the mystery of strange electrified craft in our skies moving without conventional fuel.
Okay, that sets the stage for part 2, Unveiling the Two-Density Universe. Chapter 5 is One Law or First Cause the Grand Search. The dream of every physicist, philosopher, you name it, is to find one unifying law, right? A single base for all natural phenomena, a master picture. Aho says this quest resonates with everyone, but he argues our current search isn't broad enough, is that right?
That's right. Aho argues that since deep probes into both Earth's structure and the brain haven't revealed this unifying cause or the true seat of mind, we need an expanded concept. His core premise, again, is that material substance doesn't move mind, but mind moves materials. Therefore, the search for the one law is fundamentally a search for the seat of consciousness, which electromagnetic material then references.
He then takes us on this quick historical journey, reminding us how radically our view shifted from an Earth-centric one, where our planet was the first cause. But then he pivots to a fascinating point about how, even now, our emotions can distort our cosmic perspective. How does that work?
Well, Aho warns that our point of observation from Earth tends to bias our emotions. Emotions, he says, are a bit like imagination. They can sway our mental vision. We have to learn to understand and control our emotional self to observe the vast cosmos objectively. Otherwise, our sympathies with earthly things might prevent us from seeing the larger master picture. He then describes this layered cosmic structure, a hierarchy of control, starting from our sun, moving out to our local star cluster, the galactic center, supergalactic center, and so on, layer upon layer.
And this progression, he suggests, inevitably leads to something Well, beyond comprehension.
It leads to infinity. He defines it as a condition of stable stillness, where absolutely everything in motion is contained in reference for control and law. Infinity, Aho concludes, is the absolute top authority, and thus the one law of the massive system we're part of. It's the ultimate unmoving reference point. He refers back to that first atom bomb test, remember, where the fear was a chain reaction engulfing the world, but it didn't happen.
That's a powerful and yet deeply counterintuitive claim that the unseen, finer, higher density substance actually has the most control. How might a traditional physicist react to that? It challenges everything.
Aho's interpretation is that this event heralded the discovery of a stable prematerial or space force. It suggested that pre-atomic and atomic forces are not common unstable energy. Our quest for the one law, therefore, isn't within Earth's substance, but out into the unseen, more dense energy substance. To illustrate, he uses the pellet and marble analogy. Imagine a bin full of marbles and you pour tiny pellets on top. The marbles can't contain the pellets, they slip down and disperse. This signifies that the unseen, finer, higher density substance, the pellets, actually has the most control, blocking or controlling the less dense energy, the marbles. It's a fundamental reframing of power and density, very different from how we usually think.
Okay, Chapter 6, Infinity and Us, Mind over Matter. Aho reiterates his premise for the one law.
Right.
For anything to have substantive variety, you need contrast. Black needs white, acid needs alkaline. So the single reference of speed of light for energy, he argues, is just incomplete. It's missing its counterpart.
Right. Nature, Aho explains, operates on a teeter-totter with two ends, allowing for interaction and isolation between contrasting loads. This cosmic teeter-totter has a known positive constant, the speed of light, and a still unrecognized negative constant. This duality, he states, is fundamental to both drive and substance. It's as real as the positive proton and negative electron in a hydrogen atom. And this concept gains incredible weight, he argues, with the fascinating phenomenon of firewalking.
Firewalking, walking on superheated embers, sometimes over 1800 degrees Fahrenheit, without injury. It seems utterly impossible by conventional physics. How does Osuk explain this as a direct proof of mind over matter?
He presents it as clear evidence that a knowing consciousness using mind activity operates from and within a greater, more authoritative density than our electromagnetic body. The firewalker's method is repeatable, which meets a scientific requirement, right? But it's a direct application of mind over matter. It's in stark contrast to the physical scientists' indirect methods of releasing heat. It shows a direct influence of the other density on the electromagnetic.
So why is mainstream science often mystified, as he puts it, by phenomena like firewalking or metal bending or faith healing? Why the resistance?
They're mystified because these phenomena just don't fit accepted empirical theories. The models don't allow for it. This often leads to suppression or debunking rather than an expansion of concepts themselves. Aho asserts that if theories expand to include what he calls cosmic science, then everyone can be in harmony with all phenomena. Our collected scientific data, if expanded to be as personal and broad as infinity, could then solve Earth mysteries and reveal cosmic truths. He references that MIT report on Vela X1, the neutron star, only 10 miles across, but 1.7 times heavier than our sun, like a pea weighing 1 billion tons. Incredible density.
Aho draws this captivating parallel here. He suggests astrophysics, in his quest to probe unseen densities, is much like a consciousness, unseen as nature, looking outward through physical senses. That's a provocative way to reframe science itself, isn't it?
It is, because he interprets neutron stars as electromagnetic density. These invisible systems, detected by non-optic methods, are stable energy of space. They're more authoritative, more stable than visible systems. This directly challenges our physical senses' perception of density. It shows what is unseen is often more dense and has greater control. So astrophysics and particle physics, probing this unseen realm, are indeed comparable to a consciousness as unseen as nature, looking outward through physical senses, trying to categorize what nature has made from a greater depth of consciousness, all in the search for that one law.
Okay, moving to Chapter 7, the electromagnetic density, visualizing the unseen. To really grasp Aho's ideas, we need to visualize this electromagnetic density. We talk comfortably about the electromagnetic spectrum, right? Accepting that 99% of it is beyond our physical vision. We don't see radio waves, but we know they're real.
Exactly. We accept this total unseen spectrum as a tangible substance because we can work with it. When it's manipulated as a tool, it responds predictably. It serves us if approached naturally, like solid-state electronics does, supplementing our natural automation and computation abilities.
Right. And to help us wrap our minds around this unseen density, Aho uses this really clever analogy involving something as familiar as a TV. Can you walk us through that?
Sure. Aho asks us to imagine a familiar house. On a low-frequency TV channel, say channel 4, it looks normal size. But as you mentally shift to significantly higher, more compressed frequencies like channel 83, way up there, that same house would appear to shrink dramatically to an outside observer. The crucial takeaway is this. The deeper into density any substance is found, the more room there is for its kind of containment. Size is relative to density. A higher vibratory state means higher energy density and more spaciousness because things are more compacted. The same house, taken to ultra-high frequencies, would be even smaller, creating more room for many more houses in the same perceived area.
And this principle also explains why higher energy density allows for interference-free operation, like the difference between crackly AM radio and clear FM or microwave communications carrying hundreds of channels. It's a powerful way to understand why unseen densities could be so orderly and stable.
Exactly. Aho uses this to suggest that accommodating complex things, like electromagnetic TV signals, requires placing them into a very high vibratory entity, a space where there's plenty of room for interference-free operation. This simple visualization helps us mentally grasp these unseen states of density and energy. It makes it easier to accept how our brain, as a recording organ, is still subject to the strong isolation of Earth, operating at a lower density.
Which leads directly into Chapter 8, the other density, the foundation of life. If the electromagnetic density is fantastic, Aho says the other density is even more so. He describes it as the captain to the ship of electromagnetic reality, the consciousness or mind that directs the stability and effectiveness of all sciences. Without it, the electromagnetic density is like a ship adrift. Can you define this other density clearly for us?
Right. The other density is Aho's term for the non-electromagnetic, non-physical realm. It's pure law, order, consciousness, the mind substance we mentioned earlier. Because it's non-electromagnetic, it provides no electrical resistance for our physical senses to detect. We can't measure it directly with our instruments. Yet, Aho argues the one law is based in infinity and vibratory stillness, which the electromagnetic density borders but cannot be. This cosmic foundation, he states, is unmovable stillness, a strong force so compact no other force can penetrate it. This is why he quotes, "Prison bars do not a prison make," saying something like, "You can contain my physical body, but you cannot contain me as a consciousness because my consciousness is in the other density."
So our consciousness, the I, resides primarily in this other density.
Yes. Aho posits that our complex physical body contains both densities. We are spirit with physical experiences, what some might call a soul, using a measure of wisdom. We have the privilege of self-choice to use cosmic know-how and imagination to manipulate the electromagnetic density. Our personal identity, our consciousness, he says, are sophisticated states of the other density. He then dives into phenomena like the sleep jerk, that feeling of falling as you drift off. He describes it as the separating upward of the eye out of the body a bit prematurely, while consciousness is still partly coupled, and then the more profound out-of-body experiences, OBEs.
Yes, OBEs, where consciousness seems to separate, often during a physical crisis like surgery or an accident. Accounts consistently describe floating above the body, free of gravity, perceiving things without using physical senses, and they describe a lack of heat, cold, light, or dark as we know them physically. He references Dr. Raymond Moody and Dr. Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, whose research brought these accounts to wider attention.
And these phenomena, often dismissed as hallucination or, magic, become scientifically explainable, Aho argues, with a two-density theory. He connects them to seemingly unexplainable feats like Uri Geller's metal bending or firewalking again. Consciousness and pattern, he argues, are based in the other density. The lack of scars in psychic surgery, for instance, becomes understandable if the pattern does not include a scar, and the electromagnetic filler, the body tissue, just flows back to its perfect non-scarred state. This perfectly encapsulates Aho's argument and brings to mind that powerful quote from Nikola Tesla. Something like, "When science begins the study of non-physical phenomena, it will make more progress in 1 decade than all the previous centuries." Aho says, this is because non-physical phenomena are simply the result of other density forces influencing the electromagnetic density.
Okay, fascinating stuff. Let's move into part 3, tapping tomorrow's energy, chapter 9. Living pulse, the universe's heartbeat. Aho introduces living pulse as this universal phenomenon. Pulse isn't just our heartbeat, it's detected across the cosmos. From developing embryos right up to pulsing suns, including our own sun, which pulses every 14 minutes or so with huge amplitudes. It's a clear indicator of life, whether microscopic or massive.
And what's particularly challenging to conventional science here is Aho's question. If all living forms on Earth die when pulsation stops, how can collapsed suns become pulsating neutron stars? Seems contradictory, right? He questions the standard nuclear furnace theory for suns, suggesting it would contaminate the cosmos way too much for biological life as we know it to exist. This leads him to propose a gentle creative theory as an alternative to the Big Bang. He suggests a theory where a great energy density, what he calls primary light in ageless time, and the other density pulsates as the first cause, and this coexists with the electromagnetic density as cause and effect, a constant creative pulsation.
So, rather than a violent explosion, a gentle pulsation is the origin. That's a radical shift. This implies we, as pulsing bodies, are inherently coupled into cosmic energy. The quest, therefore, should shift from just detecting pulse to detecting its irreactive nature, the underlying cause, the source of the pulse. And this isn't just theory for Aho. He shares his own unique experience from 1958 to 1961. He assisted a guy named Lester Hendershot with devices that apparently generated usable electricity with no loss to any of its parts and without the use of fuel of any type, fuel-free energy.
Yeah, Ahu details Hendershot's method, which was apparently highly individualized, very sensitive. It required an operator's unique method, a specific touch or focus to trigger the device into operation. He compares it to a doctor massaging a heart back to life. The device itself, with its basket weave coils, condensers, magnets, was almost like a living mechanical body. It needed a specific mental attitude of expectancy and balance from the operator to work. It would emit this seashell hum when ready, which indicated a high-frequency pulse charging the condensers, followed by a near 60-cycle pulse that accumulated usable energy.
Wow. And this is where Aho makes a truly powerful connection. He links this fuel-free energy generation to electromagnetic pulse, EMP. He cites reports from nuclear explosions like that 1961 Honolulu event where a high-altitude test caused this massive surge, 10,000 volts per meter, blowing circuit breakers hundreds of miles away. Aho sees this largely unpublicized surge as a living pulse that momentarily couples electrical systems to pre-atomic energy in space, causing it to sort of congeal into the system.
He emphasizes that this means, theoretically, 186,000 miles of energy are available for tapping in just 1 second, an incredible amount. Aho sees EMP as a dramatic, albeit violent, demonstration of tomorrow's energy. It shows the potential, but we need a sophisticated, nonviolent approach for continual tapping. It shows that energy isn't just something to be consumed from fuel, but a force, a field to be attuned to.
Which leads nicely to Chapter 10, 2 Density Thinking, the Path to Total Science. RIS. Aho asserts that Earth mysteries cannot be solved by thinking in Earth terms alone. Makes sense, given what he said. He argues that we are two-density beings, and our greatest scientific leaps have consistently come from two-density thinking, expanding beyond purely empirical material observation. Who does he cite as examples of this?
While he cites scientific giants like James Clerk Maxwell, Maxwell laid the mathematical base for electricity, but openly denied Darwin's evolutionary theory, seeing wisdom as something external to the physical. He also points to Max Planck, the originator of quantum theory, who extensively engaged with philosophical and religious problems alongside his physics. These individuals, Ahu suggests, achieved their breakthroughs because they embraced a broader, two-density way of thinking. He contrasts this sharply with Darwin's one-density, purely empirical thinking, which he calls unprovable data and misleading assumptions that actually burden scientific files, and in his view didn't lead to true scientific breakthroughs but rather confusion.
This brings us to Dr. Albert Einstein. While renowned for his physics, particularly the unified field theory he sought, Einstein himself struggled to mathematically show the relationship of gravity to magnetism. He saw the shortcoming not just in the math, but in the attitude of the observer. He held this profound respect for the cosmos, stating that the most beautiful and profound emotion is the sensation of the mystical, the very source of all true science. He famously said, "Science without religion is lame. Religion without science is blind."
Right, which highlights that Einstein's deepest insights, Aho argues, came from seeing mentally or in the other density, not just from his mathematics. Similarly, Aho points to William Lear, a modern achiever in navigation and engineering who apparently claimed he went to infinity for new ideas in his subconscious, finding answers beyond his own experience. Aho believes we are currently in a rapidly developing high cycle, a quickening intellect that demands new action. This enables miracles, things unknown to past science, and it's narrowing the gap between the two densities, making things like conscious life after death more comfortable to discuss and understand.
So what does this quickening intellect mean for our understanding of consciousness and self, according to Aho?
Aho suggests that our consciousness, the I, leaves the body at death, taking memory with it as a life treasure stored in the other density. The physical ego, however, the personality tied to the brain, dies with the body. It only remembers its experiences through the brain's programming. He explains Mother Earth's unique makeup, saturated with moisture, high capacitance creates a deep state of electronic isolation. It dampens unwanted pulses. This makes cosmic attunement hard to know or achieve on Earth. It's a hard school, Aho says, a challenging place to learn, but achievements here are rewarded with a lasting degree of high merit. He offers a simple solution to scientific confusion. Know the energy alphabet, two basic contrasts that express in unlimited ways. This, he states, is reflected in that philosophical saying, know ye first the kingdom of heaven, the other density, perhaps, then all else will be added.
Okay, Chapter 11. Curved Space Spirals of Energy. Aho asks us to expand our concept of material spin and velocity, to see it as caused by living space in fluid form, where lines of force twirl as it goes. He challenges us to see cause, not just effect, for phenomena like the anti-state of matter paradox in physics.
Right. When atomic particles are bombarded, they seem to disappear into an anti-state. Seems like annihilation. But Aho says if you had 360-degree vision, this apparent opposite dissolves into continuity. Like a rifle bullet's path seen from different perspectives, what seems opposite is simply a different observation point of the same unified action. When a pre-atomic state of energy is added to atomic theories, then things like anti-spin and angular momentum dissolve into continuity. Then Aho directs our attention to nature spirals. We see them everywhere, right? Seashells, sunflower florets, pine cones, as models of living symmetry.
And he expands this to the cosmos, noting that spirals as energy are detected in submicroscopic atoms, whirlwinds, hurricanes, and massive spiral galaxies. This widespread presence, from the tiny to the immense, strongly suggests a common cause and origin, linking all phenomena through this fundamental spiraling motion.
This is a crucial aspect of his two-density thinking. Aho revisits celestial mechanics, referencing Johannes Kepler. Kepler, back in 1609, discovered basic laws of planetary motion, including a mysterious 23-factor in planet orbits. Aho adds Titius and Bode's numerical sequences for planet distances from the Sun. He interprets these not as evolutionary accidents, but as relating to an ingoing vortex. He visualizes our solar system as an in-sweeping vortex, with Pluto at the outer swirl and the Sun in the apex, the center. This arrangement, he says, logically explains Earth's shifting geomagnetic poles and even the observed bending of gravity and light near massive objects.
So he's saying that space itself isn't empty, but full of these spiraling, maybe light-sensitive currents that actually bend light and gravity, not just mass-bending space-time.
Yes, that's the idea. Aho explains that space is full of spirals, and the currents in these, like light-sensitive fibers, bend light because they are the product of light. It provides a mental image for how light and gravity can be bent by these unseen dynamic forces. He then connects this cosmic flow to our own bodies. Our bloodstream pulses outward, arterial carrying atmosphere energy, and flows inward. Venous dark blood going back to the dark hole of the heart. He notes that mammalian hearts are completely divided, with lungs and capillaries serving as points of interchange between these two flows, this pulse and return.
This leads Aho to a really core concept. From the depths of great density, the other density, comes a vibratory pulse of high frequency, and this instigates what he calls gender polarity flux. Can you define that for us? It sounds fundamental.
Gender polarity flux is Aho's term for the fundamental dual creative force originating from the other density. It's not about biological sex here, but cosmic principles. It's the vibratory pulse of high frequency that instigates a positive outgoing pulse, which is male, identified as white light. This moves at 186,000 miles per second with a right-hand spin, which we experience as magnetism. This massive column spreads as a logarithmic spiral, eventually returning as dark light. This is negative, about 112 fleeter, he calculates, around 201,786 miles per second, and associated with gravity. This dark light goes through a process of rejuvenation in the female receptive pole of the other density. This dual force, Aho explains, creates structural balance throughout the cosmos. Suns and protons are unbalanced positive creations of cubic structure, while electrons, planets, and spherical structures are unbalanced negative creations, often elliptical. The solar system itself is a great vortex that sweeps inward with ever-increasing density, carrying planets within its swirling currents, each having its own unique density and characteristics based on its position in the vortex.
Okay, Chapter 12. The Roots of Gender Life's Deepest Principle. Aho introduces this profound concept. Nothing electromagnetic is permanent. Atoms, cells, even massive celestial systems are born, dissolve, are replaced. Everything physical is born of electromagnetic light from an interchange between the two densities.
And that light, Aho continues, is born of that gender polarity flux from the gender poles of primary light in the other density.
Hmm.
This provides the underlying stability to atoms, molecules, biological bodies, even our own permanent body of non-charged strong forces in the other density. Our physical body for this earthly experience comes into being from this fundamental union. And here's where it gets truly interesting. In the other density, gender is closely coupled into oneness. It lacks the divided gender or electrical charge that constantly loses its charge through interchange in our realm. That other density realm, Aho states, holds life, sense of being, and timelessness.
So the unity of this cosmic gender in the other density expresses itself as duality in the electromagnetic realm we experience. This timeless interchange of gender polarity that impregnates our physical electromagnetic reality. Aho calls the result a living crystal matrix. How should we visualize that? What does he mean?
Essentially, he views electromagnetic space not as an empty void, but as a vibrant pattern structure, like a crystal lattice, but alive and dynamic. It holds the blueprint for all physical creation. This forms a chain of secondary creation. First, the male and female electromagnetic light, white and dark. Then magnetism and gravity. Then even the two contrasting sides, the DNA helical spiral. It all stems from that initial polarity. He then defines the cosmic dance. White light, male, projective, cubic, 186,000 millipiece penetrates. Dark light, female, transverse, receptive, elliptical, 201,786 millipiece absorbs. They are equal potential contrasts, constantly interacting to form and drive everything else electromagnetic.
He elaborates on the elliptical shapes. The female gender light, being transverse, creates elliptical particles. This explains why planets are elliptical and travel in elliptical paths around the sun, contrasting with the cubic structure of suns themselves.
Interesting. And this cosmic attraction has detectable effects even here on Earth, right?
Yes. Flowers follow the sun. Seeds germinate in darkness but reach for the light. Plants grow out of the negative Earth polarity into the positive atmosphere. This illustrates how sun and Earth meet to produce results, paralleling the meeting of positive and negative space to produce material results. This undeniable attraction becomes rhythmic through breathing, the rhythmic breathing of the lines of contrasting force in deep space. Our own pulse and rhythmic breathing, Aho states, our other density influence, are coupling into this common rhythm of electromagnetic space, especially when resting and rejuvenating. He points to phenomena like Brownian movement, that perpetual dance of tiny particles in fluid, and the auroras at the poles of Earth. He calls the auroras space breathing made visible as light, visible manifestations of these breathing lines of force.
Wow. And this is where Aho makes a truly powerful connection. He says even our individual fingerprints, with their unique swirls, loops, and curves, are individualized markings. Markings that, if you could magnify them infinitely, would lead to infinity. Aho interprets this as suggesting our roots are based in the other density, an incredible link between our unique personal identity and the deepest cosmic principles. Okay, chapter 13. Celestial harmonics, the universe's symphony. Aho says that space plays a tune filled with harmonics. Man-made electronic oscillators produce harmonics, right? Multiples of their basic frequency. We can amplify or squelch them. Aho says this flexibility is cosmic law, used in celestial harmony, from the smallest atoms to the largest galaxies.
He argues that the laws of electronics and chemistry are parallel. The periodic law of elements, the periodic table, is a manifestation of these harmonics, where a basic quality in a gaseous state, like hydrogen, shows up as a harmonic in a more solid state, like a heavy metal. It's a systematic progression from light to dense. He gives specific examples, like the oxygen group of elements and the nitrogen group. He shows how these chains, if drawn into a spiral, describe a dynamic whirlwind-like spiral, rarefied at the top and compacted at the bottom. This is a chemical black hole, he suggests, paralleling the celestial black holes being detected in space.
What's fascinating here is how Aho connects these contrasts to cool electricity and biological power. He sees them as parallel to magnetism, warm, and gravity, cool. This helps understand phenomena like the cooler spark of some electronic ignition systems or the electric eels' famously cool electricity.
He says that elements, when properly stressed and pulsed, reproduce their cause, which is electricity in motion. This leads to planets and galaxies forming in states of compression. It isn't about altering matter, but about tapping into its inherent electrical nature, its harmonic potential. Aho describes white and dark electromagnetic light as equal and opposite, each with personalized characteristics. Hydrogen and helium, the most abundant elements, represent this duality at all element levels. He links this to biology, noting that diatoms, single-celled organisms, are abundant in cold waters, while symmetrical radiolarians are found in warm waters, different forms reflecting different energy balances.
Studies of galaxy clusters, Aho notes, show differences based on their position. This led some astronomers to conclude that galaxies appear to know in advance where they belong, like there's an underlying intelligence or pattern. And he further supports this with an observation of Jupiter's electrons being channeled to Earth with a regular 13-month periodicity.
This, Ahu says, points to an ingoing vortex and energy flow within a cluster of galaxies, not just random distribution. He suggests that space is a complex, curved path for electromagnetic currents, like those light-sensitive fibers carrying signals around bends. This explains how these massive vortices escape our physical detection even though we may be submerged in them. We're inside the current. Aho reinterprets the common ice cream cone shape for black holes not as a violent collapse, but as a non-violent, in-sweeping whirlwind or vortex, a living dynamic function. Earth itself, he suggests, is a black hole center or apex, with the Van Allen belt being concentrated ingoing sun-oriented energy. This challenges the standard solar wind theory, proposing instead that these external fields are ingoing vortices within the larger solar system whirl.
Moving closer to home, Aho describes atmospheric needles, microscopic charged particles that point their negative poles to the sun and positive poles to Earth. They accumulate and deposit light energy, which can cause sunburn. Rainbows, he says, are simply bent light passing through moisture, not the needles themselves bending. He stresses that celestial harmonics are active at every level of the electromagnetic density, manifesting it in the daily diurnal change, those 24-hour biological rhythms in humans, like non-adrenaline fluctuations.
Which confirms, for him, the influence of these 90-degree angle lines of force that affect our outward, daytime, and inward nighttime activities. What's fascinating here is Aho's deduction regarding those extraterrestrial craft again. He connects these quickening cosmic cycles to the increased activity of strange craft in our skies. He sees it as evidence of a quickening cosmic cycle affecting everything. He suggests these true spacecraft don't make sonic booms and accelerate instantly because they move field to field within energy space, much like a dolphin slips through water. A balanced field cannot move in a balanced field, he says, but a more unbalanced field can move in less unbalanced fields, with the less unbalanced being closer to infinity, closer to that stable stillness.
Right. Chapter 14, Secondary Polarities, the Dance of Contrasts. Aho asserts that nature's first law is survival, and the subservient electrical forces are guarded by other density stability. Breaking this law, like with the atom bomb, brings penalty lethal contamination lasting thousands of years. The explosion of the atom, he says, is a two-density happening, disrupting that stability.
Right. Aho then applies this profound principle to biology, focusing on what he calls secondary polarity in the human torso. This is different from the primary cosmic gender. He notes the average male has broad shoulders, narrow hips. The female, narrower shoulders, broader hips. Standard observation. But it's more nuanced. Above the waist, the male body is of female polarity, receptive perhaps, and the female body is of male polarity, projective. In contrast, below the waist, the male body is of male positive projective polarity, and the female is of female negative receptive polarity. It's a dynamic, cosmic teeter-totter within us, not a fixed balance.
So the male, with negative polarity above the waist, is perhaps more influenced by physical evidence, building things. His positive polarity below drives reproduction. The female, with positive polarity above, engages more with society, intuition maybe. Her negative polarity below nurtures new bodies in the elliptical womb. It's an interesting interpretation. He even provides microscopic evidence, referencing the mosaic fly, which has both male and female cells, showing how male biological structure is more compact, associated with white light, while female structure is associated with incubating dark light.
Our bodies, too, contain these internal balances. Our right brain relates more to mental idealistic, left brain to physical. Male and female characteristics balance in our organs, glands, hormones, enzymes. Enzymes act as catalysts to light forces, elevating the foods we eat to supply power. He describes the sex act not just physically, but as involving the entire electromagnetic density of living light, dissipating a built-up capacitance charge through spasmodic pulses.
Aho suggests that evolution is constant, contrasting change. And he posits that Earth itself is moving from a third density, a negative balance, strongly physical, maybe more animalistic, into a fourth density, more positive, compact, a quickening influence, more mental, spiritual.
Which raises the important question, what evidence supports such a shift? How would we see that? Aho connects this to historical shifts, the rise of individualism, civil rights, women's suffrage starting in the 19th century, even small nations demanding rights. He sees this worldwide quickening as stemming from an external space influence affecting the whole planet. This quickening also accounts, he says, for the increased activity of strange craft in our skies, as other systems are also affected by this quickening cosmic cycle. Aho believes tomorrow's science, unencumbered by limiting guidelines, will reveal how biological bodies are reactors within living light and space. This understanding will enable us to develop energy without fuel and explore space with natural, sophisticated spacecraft, embodying what he calls total science.
Chapter 15. Microscopic perfection cells as cosmic blueprints. Aho asks us to trace the invisible atom all the way to infinity. If we study the tiniest unattached biological forms, single-celled organisms, he says we should find parallels to celestial systems. This broadens our concept of life on Earth and its relation to cosmic life.
What's fascinating here is Aho's idea that we actually live within the sun, not just receiving its light, but within its massive field. He suggests the sun's pulsing, flaring forces are a field enclosing Earth and other planets. This means the energy driving celestial systems also drives biological bodies. It's the same energy system. He argues that if biological structures resemble celestial systems, then energy factors must also be similar. This challenges our programmed belief that food is our sole power source. Cold-blooded animals, for instance, survive long periods without food, remaining strong and healthy. How? Aho argues food upgrades Earth polarity of proper resonance to match space resonance, rather than being the only source of tissue energy. It's more like a tuning mechanism. This opens doors to understanding an unlimited energy source.
That's a huge claim. Food is a tuner, not just fuel. And he uses microscopic structures to back this up, doesn't he? Specifically cilia.
Yes. Cilia and flagella, those tiny hair-like appendages on single cells used for movement. He notes a recently discovered fact at the time. If a cilium is severed by a laser, it swims off on its own for a short distance. This suggests either stored energy or, as Aho prefers, that living biology reacts to fulfill its purpose in the moving sea of contrasting electromagnetic light. He seeks the cause, not just the effect. Electron microscopes reveal cilia have no direct tissue coupling, yet they perform complex motions, sweeping, twisting, stroking, with 360-degree power. Their intricate structure, he argues, isn't powered by ATP or sugars alone, but by space contrast as both supply and drive, making their movement as natural to the cell as walking and running is to us.
So cilia are essentially miniature living fuel-free motors driven directly by cosmic forces. That's the implication.
Precisely. Just as we see spirals in galaxies, Aho notes a minute vortex at the base of the cilia and two vortices in the cell nucleus. The DNA chain itself is depicted as a double helical spiral, all these spirals. This means the cell and its cilia are a copy of cosmic unity, revealing that the deeper we look to find similarities in biology common to factors in celestial systems, the more evidence we uncover for cosmic unity. This cosmic unity, he explains, is reflected even in those single-celled organisms like diatoms and radiolarians, where their patterns adapt based on the energy balance of their environment.
Okay, chapter 16. Light and dark is also hot and cold internal thermostats. It's well known now that distant planets generate their own internal heat, not just relying on the sun. Aho extends this to biological bodies, suggesting they are self-contained heating units because they are closer in alignment to creative spirit, the causal force. He gives that striking example, baby harp seals. Born at -30 Fahrenheit on an ice floe, deserted, no blubber, no food, yet they survive in perfect comfort without a shiver. How? Scientists couldn't explain it purely physically.
Right. Aho states that simplicity lies away from intermingled experiences, local findings, and local interpretations. We need to back up toward infinity, see the bigger picture, to understand that heat and cold are products of electromagnetic light, the interplay of those forces. He argues that man-made thermocouples, where dissimilar metal junctions produce heat or cold from electrical current, are just copies of nature. Biological bodies contain the same basic elements and forces, allowing them to generate heat and cold internally as needed. Mother Earth herself is a thermocouple, making most of her own heat. Ocean currents, atmosphere spirals show this positive-negative balance. The South Pole is colder due to the vortex spin direction there.
So thermal balance is this pervasive cosmic principle, not just biological. And animals show incredible adaptations to it, like birds, high body temperature for flight versus fish, cold-blooded surviving long periods without food.
Yeah, cold-blooded animals like salmon traveling 3,000 miles up the Yukon River without food, remaining super strong. Aho argues again, food is essential for health, but it's not the only source of biological power. These animals are natural negative balance receptors of drive, tapping directly into the basic forces of space, not just calories. He then reveals muscle tissue as an organic piezoelectric receptor. It accumulates forces through tension and strain, changing polarity like a piezoelectric crystal. It's charged by the pulsing bloodstream, constantly compressing and decompressing, generating or using energy.
This is very relatable. Hold your arm out horizontally for a few minutes, it gets tired, right?
Mm.
The lack of motion dissipates the tissue force. Continuous, coordinated effort, like a weightlifter uses, is key. It connects mind and body to maintain strength, tapping into that piezoelectric potential. The cilia appendage, Aho says, is a universal tool of mobility, driven by the same cosmic force that energizes food or fuel.
Antarctic research backs this up, showing emperor penguins maintain a constant metabolic rate despite extreme cold, defying laws relating food oxygen to power heat. Aho proposes animals have biological thermostats. The emperor penguin develops a warm spot on its belly to hatch an egg at -60 Fahrenheit. He suggests it has an electrical field that matches the weather and actively repels cold. This field is even visible around a chick in one of his figures. Penguins huddle to create a unified field, keeping all warm inside it. Aho links motive power directly to cold and heat, stating, "Power to move things electrically is the same power that can be used to warm things or to cool them. It's the same energy, different manifestation."
He connects this to thermal wind, discussed in the Encyclopedia Britannica, explaining thick and thin air layers being reversed in the hemispheres and the secondary effect of a basic vortex spin. Aho states that internal and external drive and forces in biology relate directly to forces coming to Earth, suggesting a cosmic origin for these incredible survival abilities.
And this has implications beyond Earth again. He circles back to the increased strange craft in our skies. He suggests they are true spacecraft that don't make sonic booms because they move field to field through atmosphere and water, which are extensions of electromagnetic light. Aho theorizes that a balanced field cannot move in a balanced field. However, a more unbalanced field can move in less unbalanced fields, with the less unbalanced being closer to infinity. It's about relative potential.
Chapter 17. Cosmic Biological Drive, the Serpent's Secret. Okay, this sounds intriguing. Aho takes on the seemingly simple yet perplexing question. How does a serpent move without legs or fins? He critiques common observations, like push-pull squirming or using scales, as incomplete, missing the underlying mechanism.
Yeah, he shares the author's personal experience with a gopher snake, helpless on a smooth road, but a marvel on a bumpy path. The bump, Aho explains, isn't just a physical projection from pushing. It's an anchor the serpent moves across, like pulling a boat along the ground. This traveling bump, created in its lower body, acts as a vital and powerful bioelectric implement. It can even switch direction to propel backward. It's far more sophisticated than simple muscle contraction. Aho draws a parallel to man-made solenoids, suggesting the tubular serpent uses this principle for locomotion. It requires accumulators of electrical energy and diodes to guide flow. Biological electricity, he claims again, is the same as man's, but at a higher state of that force, more refined.
The serpent's back and sides, he says, are a network of elliptical cells with fatty acid linings that stretch and shrink in a negative piezoelectric frenzy, powering internal imbalances for propulsion. This is essentially electrical propulsion without appendages. He revisits the idea of food versus power, noting his gopher snake ate meagerly but never lost power, and hummingbirds flying huge distances with tremendous power and insignificant weight loss, often without food.
So Aho concludes, with only the speed of light as our one constant biological power remains mysterious, right? But with two contrasting constants of space as a basic theory, all these biological contrasts become understandable. They're simply actions within the basic dual forces, making these feats scientifically understandable within his two-density framework.
Chapter 18. Electromagnetic Variety and Similarity Animal Propulsion Unveiled. Aho discusses how variety is the spice of life, but suggests the animal kingdom often thrives on sameness and repetition. He implies that it was creative life, with its love for variety and ultimate choice, that designed the diversity of species and their propulsion methods.
He recalls a trip to marine land where sea lions, usually clumsy on land, slid effortlessly across a wet cement surface, almost as if swimming without water. This, he says, was a trained propulsion field between the sea lion and the cement, revealing an unseen force at play, manipulable even. This helps us understand how larger marine life like dolphins and killer whales move through water with very little applied tail movement. They use a propelling thrust from an unseen field, not just brute force. Dolphins have a layer of specific fat under their skin, acting like a magnet's pull, creating a friction-free surface due to a magnetic field acting on water. Their torpedo shape is a natural propellant, a two-ended vortex itself.
Penguins, too. Clumsy on land, but living torpedoes in water, darting,
turning corners without wing motion, using feet only as rudders. Clocked at over 20 mph as wings straight out. He explains their wings contain rhomboidal cells giving magnetic energy, implying a crystalline compatibility between the penguin's body field and seawater. The whole body moves as a balanced field.
He further explains that penguins can't swim when featherless during molt. The feathers are part of their current dispensing apparatus. The entire body and its outer field are working parts. Aho links their Antarctic survival seals in icy water for days. Penguins walking hundreds of miles, often without food, to that constant metabolic rate across wide temperatures, defying normal biological laws. He proposes they have a biological thermostat and an electrical field for added insulation against harsh winds, even visible as a field around a chick.
Penguins huddled to create a unified field, keeping all warm. Aho links motive power directly to cold and heat, stating again, power to move things electrically is the same power that can be used to warm things or to cool them. He refers to thermal wind in Encyclopedia Britannica, explaining atmospheric layers being reversed in hemispheres as a secondary effect of a basic vortex spin.
These animals, he argues, defy laws that rely solely on food and oxygen for power and heat. Aho states that internal and external drive and forces in biology relate directly to forces coming to Earth, suggesting a cosmic connection. The increased strange craft in our skies are, Aho explains, true spacecraft that don't make sonic booms because they move field to field through atmosphere and water, which are extensions of electromagnetic light. Aho suggests again that a balanced field cannot move in a balanced field. However, a more unbalanced field can move in less unbalanced fields, with the less unbalanced being closer to infinity. This explains their effortless, silent, rapid propulsion.
Okay, final chapter, chapter 19. Biological shocking power tomorrow's energy blueprint. Aho declares that fish that produce electric shock at will, like the electric eel, are prime examples of tomorrow's energy without fuel. To understand them, he says we must observe from high-frequency space, because mentally observing from a remote area to resolve a problem is copying infinity, looking from the cause, not the effect.
He explains the eel's shocking organ isn't the generator, it's a tool for survival, electrically alive due to the pulsating bloodstream. Mental activity triggers it, channeling electrical energy through a voltage doubling series. Crucially, the energy is tapped from the environment, not produced chemically by the organ itself, much like man's electrical body taps energy. He then describes lightning as a two-way reach. Positive force from the atmosphere comes down, Earth's stored energy goes upward. Static shock is a similar interchange of forces from unbalanced charge in electromagnetic crystalline space. Aho notes that high-voltage shock can cause temporary paralysis, robbing tissues of their natural energy charge, even without current flowing through. It shows the power of these charges.
Aho states, Earth's solid mantle is a living crystal, and the sea is a reactive, fluid crystal. Convection currents detected in Earth's mantle and on the sun's surface show irregular shapes like those found in biology in single-celled organisms, emphasizing this universal crystalline, reactive structure.
He references South Pole radio signals being amplified 1,000-fold in the magnetosphere, occurring over massive mineralized granite rock formations. Crystalline masses that attract and compress signals, amplifying them. This leads him to conclude that Earth and Sun are crystalline reactors, actively processing and transmitting energy. He details the electric eel, the aristocrat of electric fish. 2/3 of its body is the shocking organ, producing progressive shock from 120 volts up to 800 volts. The pulse travels at an astounding 1,000 yards per second, 10 times faster than a nerve pulse. The thousands of electroplaque cells connected to the spinal column and brain are triggered by a tiny pre-potential pulse, creating a massive, self-sustaining wave.
Aho connects this to other biological examples. The grasshopper's hop, like a capacitance discharge, buzzing insects, high-speed cavity resonators, the knife fish, continuous weak signal. He then connects these to historical man-made, fuel-free power devices, John Worrell Keeley's 1870s vibratory generator, Henry T. Murray's pre-WWII electronic device that produced kilowatts, and of course the Hendershot device Aho himself assisted with.
All these devices, Aho notes, utilized pulse, similar to biology, for initial and built-up charge. That high-frequency pulse that sounded in earphones like the hum of a seashell in the Hendershot device energized condensers, much like a power line gets charged for EMP. It's tapping a background energy. He recounts a personal UFO sighting Aho had in 1957, seeing 3 nodes of light with living light dancing about between them. He draws the parallel. The 3 nodes on the bottom of a tree spacecraft might function like an electric eel hooked end-to-end into a loop, creating a propulsive field.
So the key is, the electric eel's chain of pulses has to be started by desire. And desire, he emphasizes, is a characteristic of life.
Exactly. And Aho's ultimate profound insight is that tomorrow's energy isn't just about technology, it's about consciousness. He concludes that free energy devices will be semi-living, requiring an operator's attunement to life, a living desire at their very root. This means the future of energy isn't just external, it's deeply tied to our internal state, our connection to this greater universal flow. A dead operator cannot attune, and dead machine cannot operate. Living desire is at the root of all action. What a thought to end on.
Wow. What a journey into Arthur C. Aho's vision. From the microscopic perfection of Celia right up to the grand sweep of galactic spirals, he shows us this universe just teeming with interconnected energy, all driven by this dual reality of electromagnetic and other densities. His work truly expands our understanding of science, life, and, well, our place within the cosmos.
Aho's book, written way back in 1979, presents this future where energy need not be fuel, but a consciousness-attuned tapping of cosmic forces. And if living desire is at the root of all action, it leaves us with a big question, doesn't it? What untapped potentials lie within your own desire to shape tomorrow's energy? It's a question that challenges us to look within just as much as we look without.
We really hope this deep dive into tomorrow's energy need not be fuel has sparked your curiosity and maybe given you some new perspectives on the nature of reality and the possibilities for our future.
Thank you so much for joining us on the English Bookcast for this incredible exploration. Your interaction, your sharing, your engagement, it really makes these deep dives possible.
Yeah, absolutely. If you found this discussion as intriguing as we did, please be sure to subscribe to the English Bookcast channel wherever you listen to deep dives like this. That way you won't miss our next adventure into groundbreaking ideas. Thanks for listening.